All right, let's go over the differences between a traffic circle and a roundabout. The distinction is the size of the circle in the middle of the intersection. Generally, the traffic circles you find in smaller residential areas. The roundabouts you find at larger intersections, and with the roundabouts there's usually trees planted in the middle. There's a big statue of someone here. It's hard to see from one side to the other. So large circle is a roundabout, small circle is a traffic circle. Now you might think, what's the difference? With the traffic circle, you signal as you would at a regular intersection. So if you're going to go left, you signal left before you enter the traffic circle. If you're going straight, you don't need to signal. And if you're going right, you would signal to the right. Okay. Whereas with the roundabout, it's polite to signal to the right coming in, although it's not required. And then you would cancel your signal as you're driving in the roundabout, and shortly before your exit you would signal to the right before taking your exit. Okay. And whether it's a traffic circle or roundabout, you will find a yield sign facing you, and so that's telling you be prepared to stop. So who do you stop for? Anyone that's already in the circle. Okay. Now these people here also have a yield sign, so they should come in slow enough that if they see you almost at your yield sign here too, they can yield away. But unfortunately, people are in too much of a rush to get into the circle, so they don't really slow down at all for their yield sign. So as soon as they get here, they're in the circle, and so we have to yield for them. So even though the book says if two people get there at the exact same time, the person on the right should be given right away, it's often the case that this person is disregarding their yield sign and they're just gunning it in. And so you have to be ready to yield in case this person is not yielding at all. Okay. And at the same time, if someone is approaching to their yield sign here and you're getting there about the same time, you haven't entered into the circle yet, you should yield the way to them. So this is where the confusion comes in for students. They're like, well, I thought the book says I only have to yield to the person on the right if we got there at the same time, but now you're telling me be careful about the person on the left. So why is it that both ways I have to check? And it's because on this side we're checking for people that are reckless or careless. They're just gunning it into the traffic circle without showing any sort of yielding here. And so as soon as they're in the circle, then you of course have to yield away. So I had a student again a couple of weeks ago. They came into this traffic circle a little bit too quick, and the examiner said, well, that's a dangerous action because you wouldn't have been able to prevent a collision if this person was coming in quickly here. Now the other thing is, sometimes students see a car on this side of the intersection getting into the circle, and they get in at the same time, or they're not yielding to this person here. And I ask them, well, are you certain this person isn't gonna continue around the circle and maybe go out this way? They're like, well, they weren't signaling. And I said, well, how do you know they didn't forget the signal? Or what if they're right, their left turn signal, the front left turn signal is burnt out and they didn't bother indicating with their hand signals? How are you trusting? So long story short, once somebody's in the circle, we have to be a bit more cautious about whether they're going to go around the circle or not, or if they're just exiting here. So the takeaway from this is two things. One is, with a little circle, you signal just like a regular intersection. If you're going left, you signal left. If you're going straight, you don't signal. If you're going right, you signal right. Of course, don't forget to shoulder check to the right if you're going to be making a right turn here. And the more important thing than the signal, if you will, although the signal is important, is that you need to be prepared to stop for the yield sign. I'm not saying you need to make a full stop here, but you need to slow down enough that you can yield the way to anyone that's not obeying or is already in the circle. So maximum 10 kilometers an hour coming towards this yield sign. Once you've checked carefully in this direction, then you can proceed to enter into the circle. The last thing I'll leave you with in this video is if, let's say, this is a large roundabout and you're coming up to take the exit, and let's say there's an intersection here and there's a left turn lane, there's a through lane and a right lane, and you want to get into the left turn lane, you should not be cutting through these lanes to get here. What would be a better maneuver is if you go around the circle and take your exit like this, okay, or take your exit like this, or take your exit like this, depending on which of these lanes you want to get into. And of course, again, these need signals to the right as you come into these lanes. So because there's not a lot of room here, you wouldn't be going into this lane and then signaling left to switch into this lane and then signaling left to switch into this lane, because it's not practical. And you also don't want to be diagonally cutting through all these lanes. So you would go around a roundabout to the point where you would signal to right, shoulder check to right, in case somebody else is doing the same thing as you, and then exiting into the correct lane.